strangely enough, I actually started, the first thing I ever did with the company was to do a publishing thing of an automotive poster.
Really? Okay.
A totally different thing. I have a old sort of classic cars or a thing of mine, and for whatever reason, I had collected a few El Caminos and a couple other old cars, Chevelles and that kind of thing, and I thought, well, there's a lot of misinformation out there about, how many of these were produced and the different options available on them and all that. So I started thinking, well, I'm going to make a table showing like how many of these cars are made, because people are always claiming, oh, they made how many of this and that. So I got together all this data on how many were made and made it into this big poster with color pictures and everything, and printed it and still sell that. I still sell, one a week or sometimes a couple a week. And so that was the first thing I ever did with the company, but that was not really my focus of it. The real focus was initially the software, but the software business is really competitive, and it's not really a whole lot of fun. I mean, I kind of like doing this, writing the software, but trying to market and sell it isn't as much fun. So I always sort of wanted to do the minting thing, and so that's what.
So pretty much everything, both the company, the software, your actual minting process, even your poster, it all comes kind of from an innovation of just, this is what I want to do, and there's no real outlet for it at the moment. So
right, yeah, there were no capabilities out there. No one had put the components together. No one had brought the right things together to be able to make it happen.
Well, fantastic. That's very
well. There are now. I mean, there are some systems out there that there's some mint, some worldwide mints have bought. They've invested huge sums of money in their systems, and to do what I do, I've been able to do it for considerably less, probably less than a tenth of what they spent for one of their systems. To get mine to do the same thing. But
well, now, if you also have an interest in cars, have you ever done any car designs, or do you have any interest in that, or?
I sort of do. I've never designed a car or anything like it, but I'm thinking I might do a hot rod at some point, but I haven't. But it wouldn't be anything like the kind you see normally around. It'd be completely different. But that's ways off.
Well, yeah, I mean, even like a fantasy, because I see you have some fantasy coins and things like that.
Right.
I thought, I know the way, and maybe I don't have full information on this, but I know like when they do car designs where they're actually doing 3D models, and they basically have 3D scanners that they'll take the smaller model and then obviously put it into a sort of digital image.
Sure, right.
Is that something you would even be able to do or have an interest in doing, even at a fantasy level? Or
if I were to build this car I've been thinking about in the back of my mind of building probably not. It'd be less computerized than the other stuff I do. It would probably be a one-off handmade kind of a thing, and I'm thinking it would be like it would be a street legal one-seater.
Something you would actually create like in your garage.
Yes. Oh yes.
Oh wow. Okay. But
I haven't done anything with the garage.
No. I know, but
I've worked on a lot of my older classic cars, restoring them and whatnot. So that would be interesting to do, I think, at one point. But I have some neat ideas for stuff I might do, and I might actually apply some the techniques that I do in the coins to make some really interesting emblems. Like cars have emblems on them. Like Mercedes-Benz has got the hood with the peace sign thing on it. The circle.
Yeah, absolutely.
The circle with I call it a peace sign, but obviously that's not what it is. But I mean, I can make some really neat, elaborate coin-like cars.
Oh, sure, yeah, hood ornaments.
That would use for something like this, but that's a ways down the road. I've been pretty busy with minting the coins that I've been doing. So,
what would you say is what's keeping you the busiest, and what is your is it selling your own designs or doing commissions? What is that's keeping you busiest at the moment?
Well, most everything I've done as far as the minting the coins has been of my own initiative. I mean, I've done a few commission works. I've entered a few design contests and whatnot. But the vast majority of what I've done is coins of my own, my own conception. And what's keeping me the busiest is by far these Amero coins that I recently came out with.
Yeah, I want to ask you about those. Before we get to the Amero, just because, I guess let me ask this. Did I see you have some other parity state quarters. Did those come before the Ameros, or were those?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did those most of those I did a couple of years ago, and I do plan to do all 50 states in that series. I've only think I've done 14 so far, so I've got 36 more to go. But yes, those were done a couple of years ago.
And would I assume that, I guess, while you're doing this and having some fun with making the parody quarters, the Amero just followed suit in that? Was that kind of born of that idea? Or
yeah, it was, where did I get the idea for these Ameros? Well, obviously just reading junk on the internet.
Right.
I'd heard talk for, maybe up to a year now, at least over a year ago, I heard talk about this, these proposals for a North American Union. I call it Union of North America, same thing. I heard, talk, or at least read talk on the internet about this proposal, which I think a couple of, think tanks, one in Canada, maybe some in Washington, have recommended the idea. But, as far as I know, that's as far as it's gone. I'm sure the government, they're back on, their meetings and whatnot have discussed the issue. And the issue is, well, would Canada, United States, and Mexico ever join together in a currency union, sort of like, the European Union has the euro currency. And, and some of these think tanks have gone so far as, like, the Fraser Institute has created a public domain image of the Amero symbol, an A inside of a circle. So
there's even it was I think on MSNBC CNBC a year ago. They had a guy from Jefferies International that was talking that was the coming thing is what
Yes. Right. Yeah, and that was probably about the time I had started hearing about it. But then earlier this year, I just sort of had the idea. Well, there's no law on the books of any country in the world regarding the term Amero.
Right.
So, if they are ever going to make real Amero coins, then now would be my chance to beat them to the punch, so to speak, and make them. I mean, it's all kind of strange. You have to think like a coin collector. I think like a coin collector, and I know what kind of things would make coin collectors interested, and things that are limited production and predate an official production of something tend to be desirable. I mean, if you go back, sometimes it can take a long time before something goes up to be worth a lot of money, but if you go back and look at early tokens, privately minted tokens and things like that from the early days of the United States, a lot of those are worth considerable amounts of money, especially if they have similarities to some U.S. coins, or if they predated some other issue that came out later by the government that was similar in some respects.
So you think
that was
very long term here.
Well, yeah, that's long term. But the quantities of what I'm making on a lot of these is not. Compared to what the U.S. Mint makes, the quantities I make are obviously much smaller.
Right.
The rarest coin the U.S. Mint has issued in the last 50 years had a mintage of around 4,000. And we're not counting like ones they made by mistake or by error. So normally issued coins, a lot that were issued to collectors or whatever, sold. There's certain the U.S. Mint releases coins sometimes, and they never are released into circulation. They're only sold to collectors at more than face value. But if you look over the last 50 years, or it might even be like the last 70 years, the lowest production U.S. coin that wasn't an error by the U.S. Mint had a mintage of pretty close to 4,000. And the coins I make, like these Amero coins, I don't know what the final mintages will be, but the final mintages on different varieties will range anywhere from maybe 400 down to less than 10 on some of them. So they are going to be quite a bit scarcer. But then it's not something that as many people would collect, but there certainly would be some people who collect that type of thing.
Obviously, you received a lot of questions from it. That it's something that. You kind of had a preset statement of, okay, I'm not endorsing this.
Yeah, I actually got a couple of pieces of what you could call hate mail for making those, and I had to explain to them that, well, I'm not part of it. They thought I was a government, agent or something. I said, I'm not. I'm just beating him to the punch here and making these coins, and if anything, my making these coins would complicate matters for them to pull off this North American Union Amero currency. I'd only be a minuscule at best, an inconvenience, minor inconvenience if they wanted to push this thing through. But
right, but it's not something they could just one day say, "Oh, we just thought of this." It's